Hello everyone, and finally welcome back to another video on this channel. I hope everyone's all good, and I have got an interesting video for sure coming up. So I want to take you back a little bit and try and remember some of the Flash Doctor Who games from the official Doctor Who website or the BBC website, which you could play for hours on end because they were actually quite fun. Despite Flash's demise, I've got myself hold of a compiler and saving these Flash games and revisited them. And that got me thinking. A lot of Doctor Who YouTubers have covered the official Doctor Who Flash games you probably remember. So I thought maybe, let's cover, the bootleg ones. So these are the unofficial Doctor Who Flash games that were not approved by the BBC or had a hand in making. So this is certainly going to be interesting for sure. So our first game we have is a game that is somewhat based on the waters of Mars, where you're supposed to take control of the 10th Doctor on Bowie Base 1 and avoid the water. Sounds pretty simple and pretty good for a game, right? Well, prepare for disappointment. You have to use a sonic screwdriver to disable the robot gadget for some reason, despite the robot not being a threat, while teleporting to other platforms in order to clear the level. Which you also have limited uses of the sonic screwdriver and need to have battery packs to recharge it. I really don't understand this game, and sometimes you have to deal with some speed up platforms to deal with. This game makes no sense. So now we have this canine game, which is unbelievably frustrating because you have to do the same as the last game, and you have to teleport to different platforms while also picking up these weird glowing orbs while also avoiding. What is that? But the thing is, you can't attack. It's not really emulated, but you just have to walk through it and just take the damage. So this game is very frustrating if you want to complete it. You also have to pick up these pickups if you want to keep your health up. And by the time you find all of the orbs, you're pretty much on 10 health if you're very lucky, if you're not lost already. It's another weird one I don't understand. Next up we have Daleks Bump and Go, which is surprisingly quite fun. In this game you have to hit the other Daleks as much as possible before they reach a certain score. It is not mind-bogglingly difficult, but it's very frustrating when you don't get that first place. But once you get the gist of it, it's pretty easy to get the hang of. The controls are rather jarring at the same time, but I can't complain. This is actually the first game I actually had fun playing. So here we have this Planet of the Dead inspired game where you have to fly around and dodging these ray things, which I still don't even know what they are called, and find these orbs in order to send out a blast in order to stop them. It's relatively quite challenging to move over with all of the different size rays, and the higher score you get, the better. And you have to make sure they're destroyed, otherwise you lose. Simple as. The score does go into minus sometimes, but if you're relatively good at the game, which doesn't take long to learn, you can't really lose this one. Apart from when you lose all your life, though. So going back to Dalek games, which is quite weird because a lot of these bootleg games are Dalek inspired, wanting you to kill all the Daleks. You have to navigate a paradigm Dalek across a minefield of some sort, while also avoiding being spotted by lights and being shot by lasers. This is actually pretty challenging as well. Something that these games have that has some form of challenge towards them. The controls are really sensitive though, which kind of what hindered the experience. One mistap could ruin the whole game, as well as the AI being stupidly overpowered in some stages of the game. It's nice though, we have a colour customization so you can choose what colour your Dalek is. But other than that, it's a relatively annoying game to play where you have to navigate the maze. But that's that. I can't really think of much else about this game. To my surprise, we actually have a classic Who game, which is actually inspired from The Chase. In this time, you have to take control of a Dalek again in order to shoot all the mechanoids and set off charges before you to not get yourself blown up. To set off the charge, you have to just drive road, I don't know, past them and set it off and get away as quick as you can. This is actually the hardest part of the game, is getting away from these charges, because these charges have quite a large blast radius and the Daleks are relatively slow. Shooting the mechanoids is also quite challenging because the range to the Dalek's weapon is insanely weak. But however, I'm just grateful we actually have a classic inspired game, even if all the other levels afterwards is relatively the same. Surprisingly, there's also a Christmas inspired one, which I think was inspired by the 2009 BBC One Doctor Who Ident, which actually features the 10th Doctor riding reindeer and sleigh. In this one, you have to pretty much be Santa Claus and drop presents into chimneys, which is actually really challenging because you have to get to the chimneys because they keep going very quickly and you have to drop all these presents. And if you're not like got insane reflexes at clicking the keys, you're going to lose instantly. My record is making it 10 seconds before failing. This game is way too hard and way too stupid for that matter. I don't even know why this game was made, over the sake of a short ident. Okay, seriously, these games have an obsession with taking control of Daleks, like some sort of violent obsession. Then again, that's the case with most bootleg Flash games. So this takes the very nationalistic victory of the Daleks, and you have to take control of a paradigm Dalek and eliminate all enemies as fast as you can before your health runs out. Quite simple, in fact, that your gun is insanely weak, even though the Dalek gun is supposed to take one shot to take out a human, it takes about 5 for each character. You even have to take out tanks, which are incredibly hard to take out sometimes, as well as jumping from different homes and bunkers in World War II. And this is quite hard in order to pass levels. You need to make sure you've really shot at the right time and you click fastly, because this is a hard game. If you don't click in time, you're going to get shot, because apparently human technology is enough to break Dalek casing, and Dalek weapons are so pathetically weak. They look like from the Stone Ages. Oh, and I forgot to mention the fact if you touch a enemy, human or tank, you just fail instantly, because apparently the touch of a human is the big weakness towards a Dalek. There's quite a few of these where you have to take control of Daleks and shoot each other to death as 2-player games, but I'm not really going to go over them because they're relatively all the same. So that wraps up our somewhat well and less cursed bootleg games. So now we have these cursed Doctor Who dress-up game where you take control of the Doctor, for example, and you have to put the clothes on him, I suppose. That's the best way of putting it. And the disturbing image of the 10th Doctor in his pants, like that, with his eyes going back and forth, is something that will never leave my head. But the art is actually relatively okay, and the rest of it is quite well made. Just the clothes don't really stick on, though. They just sort of stay there. So you could put a t-shirt on your feet and just leave it. But it's just quite a few of these lurking around there, and they're all pretty cursed. And you can do all sorts of stupid things to dress the characters up. But that's pretty much it. That for the cursed bootleg games, except for one, which I'll get to in a moment. Now, this cursed game takes you with the 12th Doctor, which looks very cursedly drawn. I must say so myself. And makes him look really disturbed. Same gimmick as the last game, except just that the eyes looks creepy. And the overlay is actually quite bad, and you can like remove his eyes and eyebrows and make him even look even more disturbing. Oh god, I don't like it. Oh, I don't like it. So this takes the spot, in my opinion, as the most cursed Doctor Who bootleg Flash game. Just the fact you can take the 12th Doctor's eyes off is just the icing on the cake of cursedness. There's also a Doctor's Spot the Difference finder I found, which is essentially what it says on the tin. You have to spot the difference between 2 pictures. Pretty simple, but one thing I have to say about it, I genuinely feel like that is stolen fan art, because it looks too well made to be a bootleg Flash game. Unless, of course, someone decided to make that some actually pretty decent art and decides to make a game out of it. The thing that gives it away is just because it's so low resolution and looks pretty dumb. And it actually looks like relatively good art, you'd see, with just a few minor tweaks to make it into a game. So that's our last bootleg game we're going to cover today. So overall, this has been a rather interesting and frustrating and quite funny experience exploring the bootleg Doctor Who Flash games.
I am quite grateful actually that we didn't have a ton of car games and lots of games that involve giving the Doctor a gun and shooting everyone down, like many other bootleg Flash games do to franchises. Although there was quite a few Dalek shooters which kind of looked a bit odd, but overall I was actually quite surprised at how well made some of them were. And I sure hope you enjoyed this video, and if you have any games that you want me to cover in a part 2, please don't hesitate to say what they are and comment, and I'll try find them. And that's that. So I'd like to thank you again for watching. Please do like, subscribe, comment, the usual. Interaction helps me out greatly. So that's that. I'll see you hopefully soon. Thank you for watching again. Goodbye.